If you enjoy watching Common Ground online, please consider making a tax-deductible donation at lptv.org. Lakeland Public Television presents Common Ground, brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
Welcome to Common Ground. I'm your host, Scott Knudsen. In this episode, join Duane Goodwin's stone carving class and tour his sculpture at the Bug-O-Nay-Ge-Shig school.
I've been doing this since 1973, and whenever I help an individual to create something for themselves and then execute it in rock, it's just a real awesome feeling. Inishkazo, Aniwugabu, Duane Goodwin. For the last 2 weeks, I have hosted a sculpture workshop for community members. Well, this was a workshop that was sponsored by the First Peoples Fund. I wrote a grant last fall, I believe it was, called the Cultural Capital Grant, and it was a grant to share your knowledge and skills with the community. And received the grant and followed my proposal. There was a lady by the name of Jennifer Easton who at one point in her life she was working with Native American people, and she had a very strong interest for the art. She was doing some work, I believe, in South Dakota. And then she was she supported the arts, and she was always buying arts from the Native people. So eventually she decided to take some of her wealth and start this fund to help artists. Either in the beginning she gave out grants. And they were small grants, $100, $200, depending on the circumstance. But then as things started to develop and it got to be an important program, eventually it just started getting bigger and bigger, and then she started these different grant opportunities for Native American artists. And one of them is called the Community Spirit Award, where 6 artists from across the United States are awarded this prestigious award. Along with this Community Spirit Award, there's another grant called the Cultural Capital Grant. And you have to be a recipient of the Community Spirit Award to apply for this other one. So I seen that on their website and I automatically said, okay, I'm gonna apply for it because I'm eligible. So I applied, and by God, I got it. They only gave out 3 or 4. And my second project was to do a sculpture class. And this is the last day of our class. We started 2 weeks ago. The first day was to go over, what we're gonna be doing and coming up with a plan or an idea. And we were ahead of ourselves even from the first day. Everybody came up with an idea and we started right the first day. The 4 that participated, they're all mature, ambitious, disciplined individuals. And it was a pleasure to work with, participants like this. I didn't have to repeat myself very often. I didn't have to show them how to use tools because most of them are, tool savvy. So, I said my studio's open. All the tools in there that I have, you're welcome to use them. And by gosh, they all went for it.
There's 14 lines around the edge.
But on the actual turtle, there's 13.
See, I learn something every day, no matter how much I resist.
13. Teaching a group that I just got done working with is like an ultimate teaching reward for an instructor. You have such receptive students that are very interested in what they're doing, and you can sense it, you can see it, and you can feel it, and it takes very little teaching to show them how to do it. You know, minimal instruction, minimal demonstration. They're so much easier to work with when the artists or the students know their own mind and know what they want and they're focused. All these years that has taken me to achieve the knowledge and the skills to help someone achieve their goals. There's something they've always wanted to do but never had the opportunity. My initial student count was 6, but after working with the birch bark I had 4 students, and I thought, you know, 4 is a good number for us, it's a sacred number. I'm going to stick with that with the sculpture. 4 students. That way I can have more time available for each student.
These are for rookies.
The community comes away with people learning an appreciation. They're learning about art, they're learning about sculpture, they're learning about Native American values. They're going to take what they've learned, what they've experienced back to the community, to all their friends, and share what they have learned. And the interest will just continue to grow.
Being an artist, you're always a student. You're gonna learn something new all the time, no matter what. Every project you do is different from the other, so I guess you'll be a student in art for the rest of your life, is the way I look at it. My name is Roger Bryan. I'm from Cass Lake area, live in the Mission area. I'm an enrolled member of White Earth Reservation. I'm working on a sculpture that I started last week, getting to the point where I'm finishing it up. It's a sculpture of an eagle. I guess when I first looked at the rock, I looked at how it was shaped and figured I could make an eagle out of it because I'd be taking less off of it. So that's the reason it came out to be an eagle. Is you want to get something where you're going to take less rock away from it. I seen an advertisement in the paper for advanced sculpturing, so I signed up for it, and I was selected as one of the students to come to the class, and it was really interesting. A lot of the tools that we used were a lot of tools that people don't have at home. It makes the job go a little quicker, so when you're not just hammering and chiseling, some of the tools will speed the process up. Then you get to the point where you're just down to fine detail. Duane Goodwin's sculpture class is very helpful to new students, people that are interested in sculpturing, or people that want to get into doing artwork. He's very helpful. He advises you on some of the things that you should do to help you out, so you don't make a mistake. That's one thing about rock, is if you do mess it up, you'd probably have to change your whole sculpture. So he kind of helps you out on as you're going through the sculpture to help you so you don't run into those problems. And as a person that wants to try it, he's really helpful in that area. He's got years of experience, so. I enjoy the final product. It's your creation that you make, and you can sit back and look at it, and as an artist you accomplish something that is not mass produced. A lot of it's one of a kind. It's not duplicated. And I think that's one good thing about artwork. A lot of it's one of a kind, and a person probably could try to duplicate it, but nothing will ever be the same. Sometimes you go with the rock, you blend it, try to blend it. This piece here had to be that way because the rock was already like that, so I just kind of blend everything else away from it. A person probably could take a pencil and mark things the way they want them, but sometimes you just go with the rock and let it kind of create itself. You're basically helping the rock. The rock takes its own form. Because a lot of times if you try to draw things on, it doesn't turn out that way anyway. And that's why I said when I first started it, I looked at it and see, I didn't take much off of it. It was already at that form, so it come out pretty good, I think.
It's okay, but then I slept late and lost my,
Name's Les Sanders. I live in Bemidji. I'm a wood carver, and I had this opportunity to come out to Duane's and do some stone carving, and this is the first stone carving I've ever worked on, and I did a small horse. It was really enjoyable, a lot of the same techniques, but I learned a lot, especially using power. Well, I think one of the biggest things that I learned here is that I'm not an animal carver. I came out to Duane's, I think I want to carve a horse, and he said, well, your model's right there in the stable, and I had a horse that I could take a look at, and the other thing is, if in the background you can see there's some two little horses that the kids ride, those little jumping horses. I use that for a model. And Duane is quite an animal carver, so he gave me a lot of little hints that I could work with on it. I love the instructors that are like Duane. They're kind of laid back, and they don't tell you you're doing anything wrong. They just suggest better ways to do it, you know. And it's such a nice setting out here to carve. You're carving outside, and he's very experienced. Well, I'm a real believer in expanding the arts, and let's face it, we have very few stone carvers that I know of in the area. And what I like about carving in stone, it's permanent. It isn't going to burn, it isn't going to fall. If it's big enough, it isn't going to break. It's just nice to learn some new type of art. You know, Bemidji is really an art community, and it's nice to have somebody like Duane that can give you this experience. Well, I really enjoyed working with the other students. There's only 4 of us, and Roger is from Cass Lake, and he's carved that large eagle, which is pretty nice carving for somebody that's just really starting. There was an art teacher here from BSU and an industrial arts teacher, and it's just nice to have a variety of people that you can work with that have an artistic background, because it's just not just the carving, it's the networking. You get to meet other people and you learn other little pieces of their discipline. That's one of the things this class does. It exposes you to a whole new art and a whole new set of people that are in the arts, and it gives you a lot of direction if maybe you want to expand it to go to a different direction. In Bemidji, there's a lot of areas to expand your knowledge of art. The art council, the tribal colleges, the college, they probably can lead you to somebody that teaches the art that you want to know. And the thing is that you have to start somewhere. And these instructors will start you out as a beginner, and they'll offer more classes till you get to the point where you feel that you're really successful at it.
This is a wedding ring that I designed 54 years ago before I got married. And my girlfriend Jane and I eventually got married. And so I'm thinking of a design. And I thought, for a wedding band, I'll make some abstract J's and connect them in a way. And somebody said, well, they look like kissing J's. J and Jane Johnson, all J's on there. And it was made by a guy that was fairly famous at that time in 1959, a guy named Christian Schmidt. He was teaching at the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis, and I followed the story about him in Arts and Crafts magazine at school. And I thought, you know, I'm going to ask him if he'd make 2 rings for us. So I went to see him, and he wasn't much older than I was at the time. And sure, he said, I can make those. And so he started out, and when they were done, I said, what was the hardest part? He said the hardest part was to figure the size of these little figures to go all the way around the bands, and he said Jane's was the most difficult because they were so small. But he spent a lot of time figuring out so it would come out even all the way around. I have a great deal of connection with these emblems that goes way, way back. And eventually then I thought, you know what would be nice? If I could come up with some sort of remembrance of that, if you will. This is more or less a monument, and maybe someday this monument will be near Jane's and my remains on our property somewhere. I'll discuss that with my two sons. I even have my name and the date on the other side here. I just ground them in there. This was a great opportunity. I thought, I've always wondered what it would be like to work with stone. I've never done a lot of other materials. I've worked with a little pipe stone. Dewey helped me with that too, figure out to put a metal band on it. And then when this opportunity came up, I thought, I'm gonna do it. This is one of the few stones he has that's designed for outdoor use. The other soapstone sculptures, he said, do not stand up to the weather very well. This is called Kasota stone. You'd find that also on a website. Kasota stone comes from Minnesota. Between St. Peter and Mankato, they have a big quarry. And it's really hard, and it's some beautiful stuff. So I'm proud to be making something that memorable to me from a Minnesota product. And Dewey has all the equipment, and he's been so helpful. He's always available. Whenever you wanted something, yeah, he said, I'll get it for you, and then I'll show you what you can do with it. Well, I think that a person like me who has done a lot of things with equipment, machines, tools for most of my life, this is a real attraction to work with this hard material. And what an opportunity, you know, that we have for that. I don't think that you need to be real experienced with hand tools and so on until you get to something as hard as this stuff. But a lot of it can be done with hands, and I would guess if you have any inclination to work with your hands on different materials, the soapstone that he has quite a bit of should not be intimidating to anybody. It's just an excellent material, and it can polish. You'd see some polished up now. You can see your face in it. It's so nice. This happens to be, by the way, Brazilian soapstone. Technically, the mineral is talc, T-A-L-C, and on Moh's scale, talc is number 1, the softest of the natural minerals on his scale. Each of the minerals can scratch the smaller number below them all the way down. And it is very soft. You can scratch this with your fingernail. But it is softer than my thumbnail, which must be about 1.5 on Moh's scale. So this will be much easier to work just with hand tools.
Yeah, I got this ram
It's
one.
just a real advantage for us to be living this close to somebody with that much ability. But you can add to that then his ability to teach it. Sometimes you can know a lot of stuff and not be able to convey it to anybody. But Dewey Goodwin can do them both. He does them both, and he's a nice man besides, lots of humor, and we joke back and forth every day. It's just been a really enjoyable and meaningful thing for me to be doing this. So this is my main project that I have planned to finish, and that's been accomplished in this workshop.
Well, I believe I'll always be someone to pass knowledge on. But as far as teaching full time to a younger generation, I'm getting closer to retiring from a full-time art teaching job for the last 30 years. But I'll always share my knowledge and my skills with people that are truly interested and want to learn. You know, it's a gift. And in our culture, a gift is supposed to be shared. It's not to take and, you know, be selfish with it. You share this gift with people that are interested. I'm standing here at the home of the Bug-O-Nay-Ge-Shig school, located on the Leech Lake Indian Reservation. In 2012, I was awarded a grant through the Minnesota State Arts Board, a collaboration grant that gave me the opportunity to work with the Bug-O-Nay-Ge-Shig school and carve this Migizi. Translated, it's eagle. And I didn't know it at the time, but the eagle is a mascot for this school. The first thing was selecting a rock that is durable to the harsh environment of northern Minnesota. And I chose to work with native rock that comes from Winona, Minnesota. It's a dolomite limestone. It's a very hard rock that is primarily used for architectural and landscaping, but it is also carvable. Sculpture and base combined weighs about a ton. So you're looking at a lot of rock and a lot of weight. I'm very impressed with the condition of this rock. There's nothing chipped off it. It looks very nice sitting here. Dolomite rock, the first time I carved it was very challenging to manipulate it and carve it. My experience with it, I feel it's an adequate rock for any outdoor type of sculpture. But it's not easy to carve. It's very hard and it requires proper tools and skill. It does wear out your tools, stuff to work with, but I've learned how to work with it. My experience with the Sculpture Symposium in St. Paul, I worked with a lot of carvers from different parts of the world, and we shared techniques, and they showed me how to cut rock rather than chisel it. They showed me how to cut the rock, precision cutting. One thing with this rock, you can't do real fine detail because it's pitty. That's probably one disadvantage to this rock. You hit these pits. So you got to work with the rock and be as simple with your design as possible. Because you can see the pits in it. And if you're to do real detailed precision work, it would interfere. Just hard to do, impossible. The sculpture was installed in May of 2013. There was a lot of folks here, students, faculty, staff, grounds workers participating in the installation. It was a very moving experience to take this sculpture, carefully place it on this site with the base and the sculpture, taking a lot of care and skill to not cause any damage to the sculpture and the base. The grounds crew were very helpful and patient to install this piece. I did have a particular subject in mind when I started this project. I knew I wanted to do an eagle because I knew this area is surrounded by eagles and eagles' nests. I think it was a fitting subject for this school because it represents so much, the eagle. And the eagle is grasping a sucker, which is a primary food for the eagle in the springtime. And I just thought it was a good combination. Just being by this sculpture brings by a lot of memories. I had a very good experience carving this sculpture. For me, it was like going to church every day. It was a spiritual connection to the spirit of this Migizi, the rock, the earth. And it was an incredible experience. I offered tobacco, I'd burned sage when I started, and did an awful lot of thinking about the spirit of the Migizi.
It's probably fairly quiet.
I believe, as an Ojibwe and Anishinaabe individual, that gift Well, I'll always continue sharing it to the day I die. You know, it's not something I'm gonna be selfish with. You know, I take the time to stop what I'm doing and share what's important.
Thanks for watching. Join us again next week on Common Ground.
If you have an idea for a common ground piece that pertains to north central Minnesota, email us at legacy@lptv.org or call us at 218-333-3014. To view any episode of Common Ground online, visit us at lptv.org. To order episodes or segments of Common Ground, call 218-333-3020. Common Ground is brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people November 4th, 2008. If you enjoyed this episode of Lakeland Public Television's Common Ground, consider making a contribution at lptv.org.